You are listening to Grab Them by the Pod, a member of the ACE Podcast Network. Welcome back to Grab Them by the Pod. After a long delay, I am Kevin along with Jesse, and happy Labor Day to you all out there. Happy Labor Day to you too, Jess.
Thank you very much. Happy Labor Day to you, Kevin.
Thank you. You know, Labor Day, which has been a federal holiday since 1894, honors the labor movement and was first promoted by the Central Labor Union and the Knights of Labor back in the late 19th century. So it's a holiday meant to honor those of the working class that have truly built the United States of America into the entrepreneurial success that it is.
And you know, if you get me a day off of work, I'm on your side. You know, sure, Columbus did some bad things, but we get Columbus Day off. So you know what? I'll give them a break.
Not in Los Angeles. Now you get Indigenous Peoples Day off.
And I actually, at my current job, don't get Columbus Day off. So I don't even know what I'm talking about. Oh, the good old days. Yep. So we're going to start talking about what's been in the news for the past week and a half or so. Hurricane Harvey. I'm sure you've heard all about it. 2 Fridays ago, it hit down in southeast Texas and Louisiana. It's been an absolute mess there. The storm has resulted in at least 57 confirmed deaths, although the numbers likely to rise as the floodwaters actually recede. Thousands of people are in shelters in both states. More than 200,000 homes have been damaged, with 13,500 basically destroyed beyond repair. And again, that's going to rise too. Kevin, you're a former Houston resident. What are you hearing from the area?
That's right, Jesse. I lived in the city of Houston from 2005 to 2008, and it has a very special place in my heart. My wife's family, half of her family, her father's side of the family, still does live in the city of Houston. And of those 200,000 homes, one of those is her uncle's. So it's something that hit very close to home for us. And, you know, we're hearing, obviously, a lot of bad coming out of that city. And I can remember the panic that set in there in 2005 when, right on the heels of Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Rita was barreling down on the city of Houston, and the panic that ensued, and everybody tried to get out of town. And so the decision not to evacuate in the lead up to Hurricane Harvey by the city of Houston actually, I think, was a lifesaver, because having been there for Hurricane Rita in 2005, when everybody tried to get out of town, it locked up the highway system and people got nowhere. You know, it took me 4 hours to get to work when it normally took about 25 minutes. So had that many people been on the roads in their cars and vehicles at the time when the flooding began, even more lives would have been lost. But certainly lots of destruction, lots of people's homes and livelihoods lost, gone for good, and who knows how long it's going to take to rebuild that city. And certainly I hope that with, everybody kind of banding together and looking to make an impact to help the city of Houston, that it will get back on its feet. But it's not going to be something that is over in a day. So continue, those of you that are supporting the city and the relief efforts, please continue to send your help.
So it sounds from what you're saying that the lead up, the preparation was definitely better than with Rita and Katrina. How do you think the response has been? We just see these horrific pictures of people stranded, floating around neighborhoods, where street signs are sticking up where their boat is. There's only so much you can do when it comes to these things. Do you think it's been handled well?
Well, fortunately, the city of Houston has been through this before. Unfortunately, but fortunately, they've been through flooding before. It's a city that is low-lying on the Gulf Coast with lots of bayous running through it. So they're used to flooding when they get these major rainstorms. Heck, I can remember flooding that would happen from, an hour's worth of steady downpour.
Really?
And, I can only imagine what would happen with 50 inches of rain. And the fact that Houston is a concrete jungle. There's not really anywhere for the water to go. And when those bayous rise, it's going to flood into the streets, and you have what happened. I think the impressive thing is how much people have kind of banded together to help one another down there in the Bayou City. But, as far as a federal response, that remains to be seen. The president made a trip to Texas, but didn't exactly stop in Houston the first time he went. So was a little disappointed with that.
Well, do you think, again, I have no real firsthand knowledge or experience would him going to Houston itself have caused problems because of having to protect him and all that crap? Or do you think it would have been the upside of him actually showing up and showing solidarity would have been worth it?
Well, I've heard the arguments from both sides, and I think that, while maybe, obviously it would have taken, extra efforts to protect the president while he was in town, I think the image that it portrays of solidarity with the people who are suffering and not, someone who is governing from on high and who could really care less. You're dealing with a city whose population is a majority Hispanic and African American. And these are people who, have been regularly put down, seemingly by the president's administration. And this would have gone a long way for him to show that he was there with them. And, again, true to form, it seems as if, he really didn't care.
He doesn't even know what's going on when it comes to these crisis events or where you got to help out. I saw him a video. I don't know if it was in Louisiana or if it was in Texas, but they were loading up supplies into a back of a pickup truck, and he had the first supply. And instead of putting it in the back of the truck, he went and handed it to the driver. Like, what's he going to do with that? But he's never done this before, so I guess he's trying. So the House is going to vote Wednesday on aid to the victims of Harvey. I think it's $7.85 billion in this aid package, and it's a standalone aid package. There's no nonsense thrown in there that we've seen before. Trump wanted to include a provision to raise the federal debt limit, but they haven't put it in there, although if you listen to some people on Capitol Hill talk, that could still be added after it passes the House on its way to the Senate. It's interesting, though, that two of the senators who putting it nicely, are curmudgeons. There are two senators who voted against initial relief efforts for Hurricane Sandy in Jersey and in New York are the two out there that are begging for it. Cornyn and Cruz are out there, and they should be asking for money, but it just seems so odd how you sing a different tune when it starts affecting you and your family and your people.
Yeah, things always change when the shoe is on the other foot. And, I'm glad, as you said, Jess, that this is a standalone measure as of right now, because it's not time to play politics when you're dealing with people's lives. Let's get as much money and resources down there in the Gulf Coast as we can to help people assess where they're at and start to rebuild moving forward. It's not the time to play politics and try to throw riders onto bills to try to get what you want politically.
Yeah, and I'll give Trump his due. I don't know how much he has to do with anything, but the response it's been fine. I think that we've seen a lot of good things happen in Texas and Louisiana, which is great. And it might be unfair. I feel like he gets really overly excited about being the biggest hurricane ever to hit. It's the biggest mess. Everything's going to go faster when it comes to recovery than ever before. I mean, he indirectly is making it about him because he's Trump, where everything's bigly, and of course all the crises he would face are also huge, and of course he's going to rise to the challenge and meet them, and he's so great, la la la.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about him, but he's got a fascination with size.
Except for when it comes to his hands, which we all know are small.
Yeah, we'll leave that. So we'll leave that for now. But
I think I read it could still be another 10 days or so until the waters really recede. I forget where I was looking today, but they were just as high, as they were at the height of everything. It's a good thing that Joel Osteen finally opened up his mega church for people.
Yeah, I saw a great parody on Facebook today, set to the tune of Jolene by Dolly Parton there. It was Joel Osteen talking about him not really looking out for people, and certainly somebody who made his fame and fortune on the backs of the people of Houston who attend his services and pay money into his church that have made him very wealthy. And yeah, he didn't even open the doors at first until he received pressure from the public. So, who am I to judge? But certainly if you're going to preach, do unto others and be a good Samaritan, and then to lock the doors of your 20,000 seat megachurch, you think he could have done more.
And one of the things that's been lost, I mean, not among us, but obviously among the people who support Trump, is that a lot of mosques were actually opening their doors well before people like Joel Osteen were. But, you can't see Trump. I mean, Trump would probably be struck by lightning if he walked into a mosque.
Yeah, that wouldn't go over well.
So that's the ongoing crisis. The crisis in I guess it's ongoing, but it's also in the near future too. North Korea on Sunday, North Korea successfully tested a miniaturized hydrogen bomb that they say could be placed on a ICBM or an intercontinental ballistic missile. Not good. This led to Defense Secretary Jim Mattis warning that even the threat of the use of a weapon against the U.S. and its allies will be met with massive military response. The underground blast was by far the largest they've had. Trump's been on the phone with his advisors, with the Prime Minister of Japan. This doesn't look good.
No, and actually, yeah, as you said, a large blast underground caused a 6.3, I believe, magnitude earthquake from the result of that blast. And, the more this progresses, obviously it's not good because it's bringing us to the brink of something catastrophic here. And certainly I hope cooler heads will prevail, but I don't know, because the heads at the helm of both countries are not known for their measuredness.
No, the Pentagon is working up a bunch of different scenarios where they could strike at different parts of North Korea, although I guess Trump, rightfully so, is probably thinking they can't 100% guarantee that if they struck all of their nuclear plants or all their sites that it would all be successful before they could get off something. But unfortunately, Trump went back to Twitter. And he said that the United States is considering, in addition to other options, stopping all trade with any country doing business with North Korea, aka China. That's a threat against China, and they're not going to like that one. We're not going to stop trading with China. China has refused to take down North Korea because they worry that if North Korea falls, you have South Korean and United States or American troops occupying a country like right in their border. It doesn't sit well with them, which I can understand even from an American standpoint. But Trump should not make ridiculous foreign policy decisions again on Twitter, because it's just he has no problem saying that he won't talk about his moves against ISIS because he doesn't want to let them know. But he similarly has no problem telling everybody in the world what he's going to do with North Korea. It makes no sense.
Yeah, and certainly we're not going to be able to shut off trade with China altogether. Both countries, our hands are tied to each other. So, but again, yeah, this is pressure put on them to do more in regards to North Korea. And China has already said that if the United States were to strike first, that they would support North Korea. However, if North Korea is the aggressor, they would not stand for that. So, we
lose Los Angeles, then we can fight them. It's cool.
Right. It behooves us to sit back and let North Korea do something stupid first.
And Mattis did say that you're not looking for total annihilation of a country like North Korea, but, we have to have our options, all options on the table. Today, the U.S. and South Korea have agreed to lift limits on South Korea's missiles payload capabilities. Trump also approved, in concept at least, the purchase of billions of dollars worth of military weapons and equipment from South Korea. So there's going to be a military buildup going on the Korean Peninsula, which is never a good thing.
I suppose it's good to be prepared, but let's hope not to use.
I mean, I don't want to say don't poke the bear, because the bear is going crazy without even being poked, but I get scared that one little thing can set off Kim Jong-un, and then God knows what he'll do. The UN Security Council today had an emergency meeting to talk about this nonsense. Ambassador to the UN from the United States, Nikki Haley, said that Kim Jong-un is begging for war, that he's abusive, and he has abusive use of missiles, and said the time for half measures in the Security Council is over. The time has come to exhaust all of our diplomatic means before it is too late. We must now adopt the strongest possible measures. Kim Jong-un's actions cannot be seen as defensive. Again, I don't necessarily disagree, but I don't know if I would say it out loud. It's very difficult, because I agree that North Korea is insane, but it's the same problem that Trump is facing, Barack Obama faced, George Bush faced. I mean, what do you do? I don't know.
Yeah, Nikki Haley, not exactly Adlai Stevenson taking on the Russian representation to the Security Council during the Cuban Missile Crisis, but she's right. What she's saying, the heart of the matter there, she is absolutely correct. But we've got to be very careful with how we do this. To your point about poking the bear, we don't want to incite something by careless use of rhetoric. I
mean, between this and health care and immigration reform and tax reform, the Trump administration is finding out that there's a reason why these things have been so troubling for past presidents. He thought he was going to come in and just fix it easy peasy. It's just not the case. Later in this UN meeting, China's ambassador to the UN pushed for, quote unquote, practical measures to solve the North Korean nuclear crisis, including dialogue. And they said that the peninsula issue must be resolved peacefully. China will never allow chaos and war on the peninsula. Again, that's kind of a threat to the United States, saying don't try it.
Right. It's not good for anybody. Certainly, even more importantly, or even more so than the United States, you've got to worry about South Korea and China. They're the ones that stand to suffer the most if something should happen on the Korean peninsula. So they've got to be careful too. All around, cooler heads need to prevail. That's simply put.
There are a lot of theories out there as to why we've never come in contact with an advanced alien race. One of the theories is that any race that gets that far advanced ends up destroying itself. And I swear to God, I believe that more and more every day when I just see these idiots out there, ourselves included sometimes, that they just have to keep pushing and pushing back. Where's the utopia that we can all live in? Where's the happiness? Where's the love?
We have to make it, my friend. We have to make it.
Yeah, so China and Russia are pushing for a deal where North Korea halts its nuclear missile activities, and the United States and South Korea will stop their military exercises. But haven't we already told North Korea to stop their nuclear missile activity? They just don't listen?
Correct. So, it would seem to me that they're not going to listen to conventional means. But does that mean that we should go drop bombs all over them? I don't know.
No. Well, isn't that what MacArthur wanted to do? And so Truman fired him because he wanted to just lay waste to the entire peninsula.
Exactly right.
Well, on to the next crisis we're facing. Trump has made the decision to end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program with a 6-month delay. He's been weighing whether to do this or not for a long time now. Of course, this program was started by Obama, so it should be an easy decision for Trump. Get rid of it. The program is also known by DACA, D-A-C-A. It temporarily blocked those who would have been deported as undocumented immigrants who were brought into the country illegally as minors by their parents. We've had a lot of disagreements over the years about illegal immigration or undocumented immigrants, however you want to call it. But I think we've usually been on the same page when it comes to the Dreamers. I mean, they were brought here as minors by their parents. That's much different than being an adult coming here legally.
Yeah, and again, this is another area that has personal significance for me because as a teacher, both in Houston and in Connecticut, I worked with students who I have known or thought to be illegal immigrants. But coming here as children, they had no say in the matter. So you're absolutely correct. Why not grant them some sort of amnesty or at least peace of mind that they're not being sought out to be deported? Among them, we have the future doctors, scientists, thinkers, leaders that are capable of making America a better place. So why are we so quick to kick these young people out? Or at least, take away the safety net that was allowing them to stay here and seek a better life and seek an education?
One of the reasons that Trump is pushing this, I think he got letters from 10 states, probably from their attorneys general, I should say, saying to get rid of them. But at least one of them in Tennessee changed his mind and said that, he's reviewed all of the people who would be sent away and that these people would be a benefit to the United States and to the workforce and have something to add. I understand that illegal immigration is very tough, and I actually think they should be called illegal immigrants if you come here illegally. It's against the law. Now, whether we want to change it or give them a pathway to citizenship, that's a different story. But if we look to the people who can really contribute to our society and want to add something, why would we want to get rid of these people? We hear time and time again, they're taking our jobs. They're not taking our jobs. There are jobs out there that people just don't want that a lot of these people are taking. These are jobs, we talk about that, they're picking peaches in the orchard that no one wants to do, that, it's not taking your or my job.
Yeah, and the idea that they're all bad hombres are here to cause trouble. No, they're seeking safety and refuge from countries that are reputed with all kinds of trouble. So I think it requires a change in the way we view and the perception of who it is exactly that is here illegally.
There are some bad hombres, and I guess Trump subscribes to the idea that one rotten apple ruins the bunch. I don't think that. I think that you can separate the bad ones from the many, 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 many more good ones, and things are just fine.
Yeah, well, as far as I'm concerned, Timothy McVeigh, Eric Rudolph, they were bad hombres too, and they were born and bred right here in the U.S. of A.
They were Trump voters if they were still voting today. I can tell you that. So a little background on DACA. DACA started in 2012 with 787,000 plus people having been approved for the program. To be eligible, the applicant had to have arrived in the United States before the age of 16 and lived here since June 15th, 2007. They cannot have been older than 30 when the Department of Homeland Security enacted the policy in 2012. If the applications are approved by U.S. immigration officials, DACA recipients can feel comfortable getting things like a valid driver's license, enrolling in college, having legal jobs, things like that. However, it doesn't give them a pathway to citizenship or even legal permanent residence, which some people think it should be going even further than it really already is right now. But the Dreamers can apply for to defer deportation and legally reside in the United States for 2 years, and after that they can then apply for a renewal.
Yeah, I don't know what the right answer to this is, Jesse. And as you mentioned, we haven't always seen eye to eye on this. But at the end of the day, when it comes to kids and young people who were brought here through no fault of their own and who are only seeking to make a better life for themselves and who have no real connection to the countries that they were born in, to send them back after living here for 10, 15 years or 20 years, they are Americans for all intents and purposes. To put them back in their countries of birth, they would be completely out of place, and in some cases it would risk their safety. So, how heartless are we if that's the policy that we seek to move towards?
You could argue they're as American as apple pie as you or I are. Trump in the past has spoken a good game when it came to the Dreamers. He said, DACA is very, very difficult. It's a difficult one for me because I have seen some of these incredible kids. We're going to have to deal with DACA with heart. I guess he forgot the hard part.
Well, it just shows his heart is smaller than his hands.
He's kind of like the Grinch. He needs to grow three sizes larger to be normal. The 6-month delay is an action that's put in there so that apparently Congress can pass a legislative fix that would allow some of these people to stay in the country. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle have been calling for the president not to end this program. I mean, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan is saying that he believes it's something that Congress should be looking into and fixing, not the president. Trump's expected to make a formal announcement on Tuesday tomorrow. So until don't even listen to what he has to say until you see it written down. Who knows what we can actually believe when it comes to this stuff?
Well, hopefully Congress does act more responsibly on this than Trump does. But he's right. Paul Ryan is right in that let's get back to legislative, not executive government. Let's rule by law and not executive order here. Let's make this something more permanent and long lasting.
Because just as we're seeing with Trump right now, the next guy can just have an executive order to wipe away what Trump's doing right now. That's why we need laws. Laws are there to have a purpose. They're there for a reason. So, a new update on our old friend James Comey.
Our homie James Comey.
I washed the shirt today. I was staring right at it a few minutes ago. Comey is my homie. Special counsel Robert Mueller has obtained a letter drafted by President Trump and our buddy Stephen Miller. Lets us know exactly what Trump was thinking, what he was really thinking in the days that led up to him firing James Comey. The circumstances and reasons for the firing, are two of the main things that Mueller's looking at when it comes to, did Trump obstruct justice? Did he do something wrong? The original letter faced opposition from a guy by the name of Donald McGahn. He's the White House counsel, and he thought, this letter was angry, it was meandering, it had a bad tone, it was problematic, a word that I usually hate. A bunch of college kids usually say problematic, but I'll go with it this time. And he stopped Trump from sending this letter, but a copy was given to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who then drafted his own letter. McGahn's concerns about the original letter show that Trump's rationale for firing Comey may not hold to scrutiny. What are you thinking?
Well, it certainly seems as if the White House is trying to spin this, the story that Trump was acting on recommendations of Attorney General Jeff Sessions and then Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein. If what's in this letter points to that, is that really what the president was thinking, or is this something that they were doing as cover? I don't know, but the timing certainly stinks. it stinks to the high heavens of Comey being fired on the heels of, the Mike Flynn investigation being asked to be dropped and things of that nature, and with the Russia investigation going on. I'm not comfortable with any of it.
Something is rotten in Denmark, as Shakespeare said. Trump, as we all know, blamed his firing of Comey on Comey's handling of the Clinton email scandal. Eventually told Russians that Comey was a nut job and they were going to get rid of him, and these insane things. So we'll keep watching. I mean, it's been going on for a while now. We all wanted the Mueller investigation to be this quick thing, just took down the administration. That's not how it goes. It just keeps chugging along until they've done their due diligence. So we'll just keep following it and bringing what's going on with it to you, our listeners.
These things take their time. They have to cross their T's and dot all their lowercase J's.
J's, yes. It's amazing that Trump's speech in Arizona seems like it happened a lifetime ago. It actually happened back on the 22nd, but we were off the air. So I still think we should cover some of the insane things either he said or some of the lies that he told. Of course, he had all of his famous hits he played, kind of like if you go to a concert. He attacked the media. He attacked the New York Times. He said the Washington Post is a lobbying tool for Amazon, and then repeated that, which is ridiculous. Amazon doesn't own the Washington Post. Jeff Bezos does. He owns both of them. How long until he goes after Whole Foods? Because Amazon bought Whole Foods. He went after CNN, and he has a new person now, ABC News, George Stephanopoulos. He's not much of a fan. He's trying to call him Little George. I don't think that really stuck.
No, and I believe, was it you that walked behind him in D.C.?
I bought,
he's a shorter
he bought
gentleman,
cigarettes in front of me. His complexion is not as good as it appears on TV.
Well, a lot of smoke and mirrors and makeup in the TV industry. But, again, this is like any of this. This is Trump nonsense at its finest. Like you said, it's like going to a concert and listening to his greatest hits. But then again, who goes to a concert but the fans of a band? Yeah. So this is not a true representation of the people of Arizona or the people of the United States.
I saw Paul McCartney in concert. Did he sound as good as he did on those Beatle records? No, but I was lapping it up and loving it because I love the Beatles. By the way, back to the Little George thing. You remember that Seinfeld episode where they thought they saw Joe DiMaggio and they kind of just smacking the table going, yep, trying to get his attention? That's kind of what I did with George. I was kind of like, George. Because I was 22, and I'm to this day I'm 99% sure it was George Stephanopoulos. But without actually having him say hello, my name is George Stephanopoulos, I couldn't get complete. I didn't have a smartphone at the time; it was pre-smartphone. So while Trump was against obviously the media, he was for his buddies at Fox News. He pointed out several times how Fox News treated him fairly, how great Hannity is, how great Fox and Friends are in the morning, how they're the most honest show. And these are the five on Fox. I mean, these are the shows that I know you like listening to news programs that agree with your point of view. We all do. It's just the way it goes. But they just kiss his butt so much, and it's so much like state-run media to a certain degree. I mean, you can't feel good about that, can you?
No, we might as well be in North Korea watching state-run media and have the woman in the pink kimono come out there and deliver the news that's been pre-approved by Kim Jong-un. So, I don't know. It says something about the man, but of course we've been through this, time after time. We know exactly what to expect when it comes to Donald Trump and his take on the news.
Yeah, we may like what Hannity has to say, but he's not a good guy. He's not good. He's gross. And then he can't go through a speech without just patting himself on the back. He had this quote here that goes, I always hear about the elite. The elite, they're elite. I went to better schools than they did. I was a better student than they were. I live in a bigger, more beautiful apartment. And I live in the White House, too, which is really great. He had to throw that in at the end because he called it a dump and got in trouble for that. I mean, I don't need a president who's just going to be saying how wonderful he is. I mean, we should know that by now. It's all he does. Everything he does is great, but it just makes me just as upset today as it did on January 20th.
Well, those are what you call delusions of grandeur, and they are the textbook definition of narcissistic personality disorder, which many believe our president suffers from. So we have to be smart enough to, take it all with a grain of salt and poo-poo it and say, yeah, but you know what? You still suck.
Everybody wants to diagnose Donald Trump with this or with that, but I think he's definitely a narcissist. I mean, that's something we can all agree on. Even if you like him, you should be able to admit that he is very much, yes, a narcissist. And I guess sometimes you have to be a narcissist to run for president. I think probably all the past presidents were narcissists too, just not at the same level. I don't know.
At least they could talk about it like they were, had more than a fifth grade education.
At least they can fake it to a certain degree. Then, of course, we talked about Sheriff Joe Arpaio last episode, how Huckabee Sanders said nothing was going to be happening at this speech. He wasn't going to be pardoned here. Of course, he starts talking about Sheriff Joe and says he was convicted for doing his job and that he should have had a jury, but he makes a prediction that he's going to be okay. Trump pardoned him the next day. Let's remember that Sheriff Joe, good old Joe, was convicted for contempt of court for refusing to stop his long-running targeting of Hispanics. I mean, it's racial profiling. The court said stop doing it. He said, screw you. And Trump is giving him his blessing here by saying, yeah, the courts are wrong. You're right. Keep on doing this. That's disgusting to me, that he wants to kick people out of our country with the DACA program, but he's willing to pardon people like Sheriff Joe. It's just insane.
Well, yeah, that's just what we all want, right? Sheriffs who say F the law, they're empowered to enforce the law, not to take it into their own hands and go around the law and ignore it.
If you don't like the law, run for Congress, run for your state legislature, run for your town council and board of ed. Why not? Yeah. And, of course, Trump crapped on Arizona senators in Arizona, but was proud that he wouldn't say their names. He went after McCain, that they were one vote away from passing health care legislation, which isn't true. There wasn't a vote to pass health care legislation, but he doesn't care. One vote away, and then said, but I'm not going to say his name. Isn't that very presidential of me? Then he started talking about Jeff Flake and saying, nobody wants me to talk about your other senator who's weak on borders, weak on crime, so I won't talk about him. No one wants to talk about him. Nobody even knows who he is. By the way, he was basically endorsing primary challengers at this event that are running against Jeff Flake, which is, insane on its own piece. But I can't believe that you could go against two people who were just voted in, I guess, 4 to 6 years ago in the state and have people cheer for it.
And what does he want, a cookie? He went the whole speech without mentioning them by name. Very presidential. Yes, Donnie, very presidential.
I think it would have been presidential if you just didn't bring it up in general. Just not saying their names you get half a cookie for that, I think. And of course, he lies about his presidency nonstop. He always says that I don't believe that any president has accomplished as much as I have in my first 6 to 7 months. I really don't believe that. But sometimes I tell him that believing that doesn't make it true.
Well, and, from some outside of the United States, some impartial sources like the BBC, right? Some of these lies that Trump has told, things like his approval. He's got a low 30s percentage point approval rating at this point in his presidency, whereas Obama and George W. Bush were in the mid 50s. President Gerald Ford was the last president to have, 6 months in, an approval rating in the 30s. Only half as many border apprehensions have happened in the 6 months, or almost a year now of the Trump presidency, as did in the Obama administration last year of 2016. He's only seen modest economic growth. He supported a repeal of the Affordable Care Act, which would have cost 20 million people their health insurance. And Bill Clinton signed almost 10 more bills into law by this point in his time in office. So many of these things that Donald Trump reports as to have been successes of his in these first 6 to 8 months in office are complete and utter lies.
I want to talk a little bit about what PolitiFact had to say, but I don't even know if we need them anymore. We have you here telling us all the information we need to know. But we're going to go to PolitiFact anyways, although they're really just pointing out things we already knew. One of the things that Trump said during the speech was that, my first speech regarding Charlottesville was fantastic. They all yelled at me, and then he reread it and goes, what's wrong with that? Of course, he left out the many sides comment, which was that, we condemn in the strongest possible terms the hatred, violence, bigotry on many sides. On many sides. He had to repeat it. So again, he's trying to rewrite history by not actually reading what he said and then asking, what's wrong with that? It's the fake news media that's coming after me.
Well, and when you subtract all the bills that he signed into law that did things like change the names of federal buildings in Nashville, Tennessee, then he's actually done even less.
Yeah, if you look at what he's done, anything that has res next to it, whether it's S-res or H-res. It's like, oh, I passed a H-res saying that today will be Kevin and Jesse grab them by the pod day. Like, it's not a real law. It's a stupid like proclamation that anybody can get done when you're in Congress. You have to see the real Senate bills and the HRs to see what actually happens. I'm just running through these quickly. He said CNN's ratings are going down. They're at a 5-year high. Wages haven't gone up in a long time. They've been going up for the past 3 to 5 years. He again makes false claims about crowd sizes. He says that the New York Times apologized to him, never happened. And he said there aren't a lot of people outside who are protesting, even though for hours leading up to the actual rally, the main, CNN, MSNBC, and Fox, they were covering the people outside. Local media was covering thousands of anti-Trump protesters. And after the rally, Phoenix police chief said that there were probably tens of thousands of people there. So again, these are just blatant lies that people will just lap up if you're a fan of his, which is just kind of sad.
Oh yeah, and by the way, the Boy Scouts want that half hour of their life back, from that terrible speech. But oh well.
So, I mean, these are things that we should be used to by now, but we're going to keep talking about them because they're just as insane now as they were then. So I guess got to get that all out of my system. Kevin, what do you have for us for Kevin's Corner?
Well, Jesse, the month of August 2017 will go down in history as having tested the United States of America more than most others in our time. Beginning with the violent clashes in Charlottesville, Virginia over the removal of a statue honoring Confederate General Robert E. Lee, pausing for a rare but awe-inspiring solar eclipse, and ending with the catastrophic damage wrought by Hurricane Harvey on the Texas Gulf Coast region, this month has shown us what we are really made of as a country. While the events of Charlottesville reminded us that evil does exist on our soil and that there is division in our nation on a number of issues, the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey has proven our better nature as a people always shines through. In the wake of the devastating floods that submerged the city of Houston, my adopted hometown, the response to nature's wrath has been truly heartwarming. People simply set aside any perceived differences to help others in need, be it black police officers assisting white children, self-described rednecks rescuing immigrant families, Muslim imams opening their mosques to those seeking shelter regardless of belief, or the bakers trapped inside my favorite panaderia, El Bolillo, baking thousands of loaves of bread for those in need of food as they themselves were trapped inside the bakery due to rising floodwaters for 2 days. These acts of generosity and empathy illustrate to the most disillusioned of us that there is still hope for our country. We are better than our faults. The good will always overshadow the bad. We must keep the faith. America is a great place to be.
Couldn't agree more. As long as there's hope, there's reason to fight for what's right and what we believe in. All right, everybody. It's been wonderful to be back with all of our great listeners, with you, Kevin. Remember to go to our website at grabthembythepod.com. You can follow the links to our social media accounts, to listening to our podcast. But you're listening to it right now, so you probably know how to get there. So I guess until next time, it's been real. Thanks so much, Kev.
Later.